Amy Westcott, you just got your first Emmy nomination for costume design for Fallout. Congratulations. How did
Thank
you
you.
find out?
Um, my assistant on Fallout texted me, and he just wrote, "Oh my God," and I knew from that text that was why he was freaking out. So it was exciting, so excited.
No other context needed.
Yeah, no other context, just OMG, things like that. It was amazing.
Yeah. Well, I know you weren't familiar with the game before the show, so what struck you the most when you learned more about the Fallout world?
I think a few things. One is just its original concept, and how broad it was, how many different directions it could go, but also just the sort of quirky, like feel of it. And I really felt like that tone hadn't been seen before. It's something that was just so fresh and so new, and just like yeah, something that was really original.
Mhm.
That struck me.
Yeah, one thing I love about the show is that it's post-apocalyptic, but the show doesn't look or feel bleak. And
Yeah,
a lot of it is with the aesthetics of the costumes and the production design, also the humor and like your costumes, a lot of them are very bright and colorful. So what was the discussion like with Graham and Geneva and Jonah about the costumes?
well, I think it was staying away from the bleak apocalyptic feeling. One of the things that I loved the most about the feel of it is that there was hope and inspiration, that was spreading through the community through the years. So the apocalypse happened, and then they had to sort of figure out how to live through it and keep going, and through that became like a hopeful situation. And also just like people found their own style with what they could find, and what they could steal, and things like that. So I think that time gap between when we catch the story and when the bombs dropped and the apocalypse, like everything sort of went to hell. It there was such a span of time that things like good came out of it, in terms of like people prevail, and they they don't sit at the bottom and stay there. They figure it out. And I thought that was really a hopeful, nice um, way to go. And we did that with the costumes. It was just an optimistic um, take on things, instead of like very sad. We didn't want people to look at it and feel sad. I think that Geneva, Graham, they came up with this really cool, sort of fun and hopeful and quirky and humorous take on something that was really depressing. Um, and Jonah, they never wanted to see it turn into like a sad, keep it up.
Yeah, for sure. Well, the game obviously there are elements that you have to satisfy with certain looks. But the story itself, like there are definitive inflection points. Like with the bombs dropping, and then some people went in the vaults, and some people were just stuck on the wasteland. And like did you like make your own rules about like how what you were saying before, like how people would gather clothes like on the wasteland, like the ghoul is like he's wearing these same clothes for 200 years,
Hmm,
and then
hmm.
it's like there's going to be no more like clothing production above
Yeah,
ground either.
yeah, that was a big conversation we had in the beginning. Like what does the ghoul, what does he wear, and is he a whole new thing? And is he? It's been so many years, and I was really gunning for keeping him the same, and just because I felt like the ghoul was trying to hold on to who he was. He's trying to remain, like, keep his humanity. So in it, he does have stolen pieces and stolen objects. He's hammering outside. I hope that's not bothering you.
Is the Brotherhood of Steel coming?
Yes, exactly. I think that the ghoul was holding on to who he was, and then collected things, and that was one of sort of rules of the game is, you know, you scavenge, you steal, you grab things, you know, get what you can get, and then there's points and things like that in the game, or you get certain things from it. But we wanted to take those rules and apply them to everybody. You know, what have that was one of the most interesting things in the beginning of doing the research was what can remain, what was in the world, what was being produced then, because we had the sort of elevated 50s look, and it was, you know, 2074, I think, but it was futuristic in its you know, its trajectory, because it didn't really follow the like our timeline. And we just had to figure out, according to the game, what rules were there and what skeleton was there, and then we expounded on that and did what was sort of realistic and what really would have happened and what people could have done with things. And it was really fun. Like, okay, so what if all you have access to is an old warehouse full of, you know, uh, tents or something. Now you come upon the warehouse, you're going to steal all the tents or steal what you can, and then what would you do with them? So what would you make out of that? Knock-on effect of like groups that had you know, ransacked something and had something that they made use of, and that was really fun figuring out, you know, what little sects in the wasteland existed. And then going back to the ghoul, it was what he stole and the story behind each item. Like his duster was, you know, there was shot holes and somebody got killed for it, and maybe he stole it from them, but it had been through such a long period of time and existed, was not manufactured, but had the years and the story behind it.
Mhm.
So that was, yeah, it
Yeah,
was.
you could see all the layers he's wearing, and they're obviously distressed in age by now. But you could also see the blue cowboy outfit he was wearing when he before the bombs, when he was Cooper Howard
Yeah.
performing at the birthday party. And like, did you have to start with Cooper's look? Because there's obviously no Ghoul without Cooper Howard.
Well, that was really important. I think that you need to know Cooper before you know the ghoul, because there was so much, like I said, humanity in him. There was so much of who he was as a person into what made the ghoul, and he's not, you know, he's an empathetic character. You get to see the underbelly of this person, and it's because of the pain and the strife and everything that he has, the struggles that he went through. They got him where he was, and he had to survive. He's a survivor, um, probably more than anybody else on the show. He's the one that's gonna live on one way or another. And that had to be, yeah. We had to start with Cooper, absolutely. And Walton and I worked very closely on like who Cooper was, and, you know, would he carry out would he want the Fallout colors? Did he originate the colors with the blue and gold? We sort of created his story and then just pulled it into the ghoul, and what sort of happened to him, you know, where he went.
Yeah, and he looks great as both Cooper in his like slim suits, and then just
Yeah,
like the badass cowboy Ghoul.
he's so amazing. What kind of like an actor that can play both, and it's so extreme in a way. You know, one is just such a scary badass, but the other is such a sleek, lovely individual. And it's funny because you can see, because Walton is so good, that they're the same person. You know, the inner heart of them is the same. And it was such a credit to him that he could carry it. But we did use his body and his sort of like natural sensuality. Like, he's a sexy guy, and we were able to sort of hone into that with his silhouette, and, you know, getting that sort of matchstick look about the ghoul. He has years struggling along, but it comes from the first sort of sleek version of Cooper.
Yeah. Well, we also see a lot of the skeletal feral ghouls with like, really gross decaying clothes. So what went into those and like, like how did you consider how long they've been decaying and like what they were doing when they were shot?
Yeah, they always started from somewhere, a person. So that was important to us also, is to sort of see the humanity in the feral ghouls, even the people that had gone so far down the pike. And it was, yeah, important to see little elements of who they were. Maybe it's a necklace or a shoe that they wore when they were a person. Now it was destroyed, but it was who they were. And we had a trajectory of ghouls where I worked with a fantastic illustrator, Brian Valenzuela, who did a whole trajectory of a ghoul, and then we worked with him to get the ghoul down to the feral ghoul. So it's kind of a beautiful um, just a timeline, if you will, on what happens to them. And it was very important just to know for us when we were creating them that they were someone. They're not like a monster. They didn't start out that way. They started out somewhere um, very sort of just human.
Yeah. Well, down in the vault, we have the iconic jumpsuits, and I imagine there's kind of some pressure for you to bring what gamers know from the game to life. But how do you also make it your own and also make it practical and functional for the show and for the actors to wear too?
I think that's the major challenge, is because when you see something on a game, you automatically it's flat, so it's nobody wears it. It's making it into a 3D functional costume is it takes a lot of figuring out, and just how actors would move in it, and how it would it was a lot about the fabric and getting the fabric just right, because it had to be a specific amount of stretch, and amount of stretch also that would retract and go back to its original state. So you didn't have like people, with their elbows puffing out, or their knees when they bent them a lot. We couldn't have like the knees sticking out, and things that some fabrics do. So we did a ton of fabric testing to get them there. But also, one of the really fun parts of that was getting all of the different parts and elements to look like the show, but to spin it in our own way and to make it original. So it looked like the next uh, iteration of the suit, because all of the games, they changed a bit in the suit presentation, and so we took it to our own place and did all these sort of leather pleating and textures, and worked very hard and did a lot of sampling and trials and tribulations on getting that look, just to look enough like the game, so that the the audiences weren't horrified, but give it an original spin and make it just workable, something that somebody could run around in all day. And one of the biggest challenges was that it was really hard for these actors to use the bathroom. So it was like, oh god, like it's just like wearing a jumpsuit all day, which is a fitted jumpsuit, mind you, with like we had the leather gauntlets over them and everything. So they had to take off lots of layers in order to take the jumpsuit off. And so it was a challenge for them, but it was I think we made the balance, and it really worked for their action. And that was really important. There's so much stunts. There's so many things for them to do. And also, it was really important for me that it looks like nice on every kind of body. Like there's a lot of different kinds of people, and different body shapes, and we didn't want it to look like silly on anybody. Even though the concept itself is kind of silly,
Yeah,
like
it's
the
like it's well fitted on everybody.
Yeah, like they
Yeah.
had to look good, and we worked really hard to tailor everything and all of the background and everyone. It went through like a rigorous tailoring process to make them look good in it, and I think that was important so you don't get this sort of like jokey feeling of, oh, that looks terrible.
Yeah, the show, I feel like it rides the line perfectly of being real, but also like feeling artificial like a video game. So it's like you satisfy both components. But what kind of fabric or material was that for the suit that achieved the kind of malleability you wanted?
Well, it's its own thing. It's made, it's a custom made. It's made in Italy. I used it years ago on a film called After Earth, and it the beauty of it was that it was a four-way stretch, which is very rare to get a sort of a matte feeling, and the like pliability and everything, from like basically when I got the job, I thought I got to show them samples of this fabric because this is the thing. And it was so difficult because it's not made in bulk at all. It's a small, they put out very small batches uh, of it. So we had to keep going back and keep going back. And then the Italian factories closed down for a month and, in August and everything. So it was like very difficult to get the type of fabric yardage that we needed. But that was the king of fabrics for us. And we did do some of the background with a sort of a really great um, uh, second choice kind of thing. And then we dyed everything. It went through a lot of uh, different processes to get to the blue, just and get it. And then we had to age everything. So it was like the vault suit itself went through so many different uh, processes and so many different departments within my department to get it to the place of aging it down so that it didn't look so shiny and happy. I mean, they weren't getting new ones.
Yeah, because they're just
Um,
stuck down there.
they're just stuck down there. So it was like, what would the suit go through when it didn't have elements? When it didn't have sunshine, it didn't have dirt. What could it have gone through? So we did a lot of research on what could happen, and then what could happen above ground. So it was a lot of like just delving into uh, the realistic aspect of what happens to a costume in various situations.
Yeah, and could also kind of see that with like Lucy's wedding dress too. It's
Yeah,
they don't have like new wedding dresses for everybody who gets married down there. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And it's funny. We had the line about it being a little loose, but we also had to make it look good. So it was like fitted to her, but the idea was like maybe it's not that fitted on everyone, or maybe it's tight or loose, or yeah, they might have had two or three in their
The hand-me-down.
it's a hand me down, and that was an important aspect of people signing it so that it looked like it had been through many generations down there, and now it was just her turn. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of aged.
hmm well, lastly, the show's been renewed for season two. Are you coming back working on season two?
I am not actually, sadly, because it's going to Los Angeles, and I live in New York, and I have my family here. I have two kids, and I can't move for 7 months. I wish I could, but my kids are in school, so it'll be interesting just to see what they do because I love the scripts, and I think that they're so. I mean, the writers and Kilter are just so original, and I really can't wait to see what they do.
Is that exciting for you as a designer when you have to pass the baton in a way to the next one and see how the next designer builds on what you created?
I think sometimes it can be. I think in this case, it's a little bittersweet because I'm very attached to not only the story but also the actors. I love them, and all of them. I have such a loyalty to. So passing the baton is a little like here. it's one of those things where you're like, you can take it, but it's a little heartbreaking for me because
Mhm.
I loved it and I loved working with them. So I am curious and excited to see what happens. But it's also, we did so much work on it that the next iteration already has a ground floor. They already have a lot to work with, which is good for them. Um, and but I can't wait to see what they do above and beyond that.
Yeah, sure. Well, Amy, it was great speaking with you. Thanks so much for your time and congratulations on the season one. Maybe season three will move back to New York.
Yeah, you're so. Thank you so
Thank you
much.
so much. Have a good one.
Thanks, you too. Thank you.